And we're back. I don't know when I'm going to upload this, but I'm recording it right after I recorded the last video. Not that that information matters, but yeah, I am just bored. And as usual, I'm using this game to put off doing something more important that I should be doing right now. I have something pretty significant tomorrow morning that I should be preparing for, and I'm about 3/4 prepared for it. I have to finish doing some finishing touches on something, and then I'll be finished. But I'm putting that off, and I'm playing this game instead because I'm nervous about this thing I have tomorrow, and I'm also kind of bored with the type of work that I have to do for it. So it makes it difficult to find motivation that doesn't come from panic, which is, I feel like, really a large part of my life up to this point has been motivating myself through either hatred, fear, or some combination of the two. I guess panic is in the same category as fear, but I really just, it really is just suffering. Like, I don't really do things out of a sense of enthusiasm for the thing I'm doing. And I know that nobody does that. I know that nobody likes their job. You're not supposed to. But, yeah, I just think that sucks in general. I think that's shitty. I don't think life should be like that. But that just makes me a naive idealist, I guess. I think life shouldn't suck, which makes me an idealist. That's essentially, that's how low the bar is now. And how many... That's an indication of how many things have been sort of lumped into the category of idealism. It's like anything that isn't just accepting that things are just going to keep getting worse, any attitude other than that one is now idealistic or utopian or something, which I don't think is a good sign. I think that's a sign of, maybe it's the Frankfurt School psyop, maybe it's, I don't know what it is. I think that's definitely part of it. I think that whole movement is extraordinarily toxic to the human psyche, and I think that everyone involved in it, you know what? I won't say everyone. I'll say that I think that there were people in it that had good intentions, but of course that's how you pave the road to hell, is with good intentions. I think a lot of people in that movement genuinely thought they were doing something good. They were idealists, you might say. They thought, oh, we're doing something great by supporting this movement, when in fact they weren't. They were, but I mean, you know, I was gonna say, I think that a lot of people in that movement knew what they were doing. They knew that they were creating something that was a language weapon, that was going to be unleashed on Russia first, and it successfully rotted that country. And right now it's so rotted, it's like an old pumpkin. You can sort of push your pinky finger through the side of it, and it'll just mush right into it like it's ice cream. Like, it's just disgustingly weak at this point, weakened by that language psyop. And I think that the only problem with that weapon is that it backfired on the people who designed it, on the Germans, who designed all that shit in the 19th century. And I think that it's now infected pretty much every country on Earth. And I think that no matter who you are, no matter what camp you're in, no matter what type of idealist you are, or pragmatist, or realist, or cynic, everyone right now is really fucking sick of the demoralization propaganda that's inherent to that school of thought. It is inherently demoralizing. It is inherently anti-human. It's anti-human flourishing. It is not about quote-unquote sustainability. What sustainability is a code word for is letting things gradually get worse. It has nothing to do with climate change, which I think is a real thing. I think we are going to be fucked if we don't fix it. But I think that anyone who says they're advocating for sustainability is really saying, let's give in to the demoralization. Let's not fight it. Let's not try to salvage anything good from the last century of human experiments, because there was a lot of horrific shit that happened, but there was a lot of amazing innovation too, and I think there's people who just want to throw it all away because of this propaganda, because of this Frankfurt School, because the Frankfurt School really is the root of everything. It really is the root of all the nasty, abhorrent, toxic ideas that have now sort of seeped into every, well, they haven't sort of seeped, they've seeped into every well of knowledge. It's like a sewage seep into the wells of knowledge that universities used to be. And I think that now it's so heavily entrenched. Like, there are so many there's 3 generations of academics now, if you count the youngest ones, who believe in it wholeheartedly. And I think that's reached a point. It's reached a point now where people don't even understand to what extent they've been hypnotized by it. There's a great painting. It's actually about homosexuality and how that spreads, but it's called Hypnosis, or The Hypnotist. And it's basically this creepy, faceless, hooded figure with light blasting out of its faceless face hole onto the face of a naked, impressionable young man. And I really think that's what the Frankfurt School propaganda has done. And I see people who are smarter than I am, and I know they are because they've made better choices in life, and they're more self-aware, and they have better habits, and they're more disciplined. And that takes not just willpower but intelligence. It's not just about being raised well. It takes actual intelligence to maintain good habits and to maintain those aspects of your psyche and your personality. So I know these people are smarter than me, and I see them going balls deep into Frankfurt School shit. And it doesn't matter if it's the really early stuff like Hegel or whoever the fuck, there's people before him, whatever, or if it's Marx, or if it's the 500 Marx fan fiction writers that have popped up. It really doesn't matter what branch. It doesn't matter if you're sucking Zizek's dick, Slavoj Žižek, or whoever. It really doesn't matter which one. It's all the same poisonous tree. The sap goes right to the tips of every branch. So it really doesn't matter what part of the tree you're gnawing on. It's all the same poison. And I see smarter people than me devote literally their entire careers to this. And it's a difficult thing to realize, because part of me hopes that they're faking it just to get enough money to help their family and to retire and have their kids have some kind of financial cushion. Hopefully not a college fund, because I sure as fuck wouldn't send my kids to a college these days. But the point is, I really hope that they're faking it. I hope that they're just pretending to be into this, and they're better liars than me. I hope they don't genuinely believe in it or any of its derivatives, because if they do, that's extraordinarily depressing. And again, like, there's people who I respect who have these types of philosophical and political affinities, and I really think that it's probably the worst type of rabbit hole meme to fall into. I think it would be, you know what? It's not the worst. I think the far right stuff is worse, because those people are being set up to be sacrificed like fatted calves. They're going to be killed a lot quicker. I mean, maybe you want to die before you see the result of the Frankfurt School stuff come to fruition. Maybe it's better to be dead. But at this point, I think that stuff's worse, because you will get killed quicker or put in prison, like, right away. That's clearly the honeypot that's being boiled right now. The flies have all gotten stuck in the honey, and now the lid's being put on it, and the pot of honey is being put over a flame. You are being boiled alive. If you fell into that. So I think that's probably the worst thing to fall into at the moment. But right after that, I would say that the Frankfurt School shit is. It's the same two sides of the same toxic coin that Nietzsche predicted would replace mass adoption of religion. It has done that in secular societies like the West. That's finished. The process is overwhelmingly finished. Like, you are either in one of those two camps. If you're in a Western country, it doesn't matter if you are in a country with a different political system that has more nuance to it than the U.S. system, which is just a back and forth, boil people in one pot, then boil them in another type of thing. It's sort of a pendulum, or I don't know what. Pick your metaphor. It doesn't matter. It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. You can argue that the Republican side of things has more legitimacy because it's closer to the constitutional republic that the U.S. started out as, but that didn't last more than about 20 years because you have things happening in 1791 that I won't even get into on here. But it's enough to just say that date is to put me on even more lists than I'm already on. So just look up what happened in 1791. I think it's 91. It's either 91 or 92. So really, if you look at 1776, really the United States as it was conceived didn't even make it 20 years. It didn't even make it one generation before it got fucked. And it was just sort of a gradual decline from there. So I'm not saying that the people arguing that one side is better than the other are necessarily wrong. I think there are remnants, there are shreds, there are flakes of the original idea still floating around. They're like sort of flecks of gold in a Goldschlager bottle, and then the vodka that forms 98.9% of that liquid, that's everything else. That's all the crap. So if you're pointing out that there's flakes of gold in there, you are correct. There are flakes of gold floating around. Absolutely. There are bits of hope. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not trying to demoralize people. I'm just trying to rant because I'm very bored killing these ghouls, and I'm tired of thinking this shit in my head and having no outlet for it and not being able to write about it or talk to anyone about it because no one cares, no one agrees with the point of view I have, so there's not even a single person who would want to entertain it because most people, I think, would just dismiss most of what I'm saying as some kind of extremism or some kind of insanity, which is why I have to talk over a video game from 20 years ago that I used to play in my teens, because that's where discourse is now. This is Twitch is like this is the last bastion of this shit, is to disguise it as some kind of video game child entertainment, not directed at children, but childlike in its content and its time wasting nothingness. This is the only place I think where people can actually speak their minds. There are a few universities that seem to have their balls intact, but they're not going to last. The economics are going to cripple them. So there is that to look forward to. It's very bleak, and it's hard for me not to fall into this type of thinking. And I can't sort of journal write my way through it. I think it helps me to just talk about it and know that even like one or two people are listening and may derive some kind of entertainment from it. Even if it's just sort of schadenfreude, like, wow, I'm going to listen to this guy unravel over RuneScape. I think that's, like, if that entertains you, I genuinely don't care. I'm genuinely happy to entertain people in any way, including myself. So, you know, if you're along for the ride, come along. Anyway, the whole point of this video is just to kill time and to kill ghouls. So hopefully I can get this champion scroll. People are asking for pest control. I always feel guilty for not joining immediately. That's my in-group groupthink part of my brain going, you're not helping out the pack. Your sense of loyalty is not high enough. Which is, it really is true when people say that loyalty is more important than skill, and that positivity is too. Like, if you're the guy in the group that's just dragging people down, people will just cast you out. That's true. Which ironically is a negative thing to think about. You know, we're all supposed to stay positive, and it's like, well, fuck that. I can't always do that all the time. I gotta complain about shit sometimes. You know, we all do. The way I deal with it, the way I channel my angst, is to turn it into dark humor. That's really the only way that I know of to deal with it. You know, you could go write a gay poem if you want. You could go write gay poetry. You could do that. But I think comedy is a lot more useful in terms of its value to society, even if you're talking to other dark-hearted, cynical, depressed people, at least you're giving them a glimmer of light with your dark humor. I mean, at the very least, somebody is going to relate to it who is probably going through some kind of similar period of angst that I am, or that anyone who does what I do when I improvise like this does. I feel like there must be some value to this. I have to believe that there's some value to it, to this ranting that I'm doing. If nothing else, it's going to help me get the champion scroll. Then we can all celebrate together. That'll be fun. I've been thinking about how I'm going to use this channel, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload things a lot more sort of haphazardly and casually on purpose. My video titles are not going to be uniform anymore. They're not going to be linear. It's just going to be whatever the fuck I want to record. It's not necessarily going to be voicing Vscape. It's not necessarily going to be just me ranting. It's not going to be political or philosophical content. Maybe it's not going to be comedic all the time. It's just going to be whatever I want to do. Because this channel is kind of just me venting. It was never supposed to be anything else. And that's why I never tried to appeal to any sort of huge audience of people. Like, if I did that, I would just make OSRS videos if I wanted to appeal to people. And if I wanted to make money off this, I wouldn't do this. This is a huge waste of my time. This is making me no money. It's doing nothing for me in terms of networking. It's probably harming my potential future image, because any AI, as simplistic and overhyped as AI is these days, they can recognize your voice. So it's only a matter of time before somebody finds these videos, which I'm probably going to delete anyway. It's only a matter of time before somebody finds them and matches them to my voice, and then, can you believe that so-and-so said this in a RuneScape video? Turns out he's insane, or something. You know, there's going to be some kind of a period of discovery, whether it may have already happened. In fact, I have a suspicion that it did, but I can't confirm that. I have no evidence, so I can't invest any thinking in that possibility because I don't have any evidence for it. I have suspicions, I have a gut feeling, but if everybody operated on gut feeling, that would not be a good way to structure society if everyone just followed their gut all the time. There are times when you have to, and there are times when it doesn't matter what your gut is. You just shouldn't do something other than the one choice that's clearly in front of your face. Usually in life, there's a path that makes the most sense. It's not the easiest one, almost never, but there's almost always a path where it's like, yeah, that's what I should be doing. Yes, I'm going to do that now instead of fuck off. It's why it's the thing that I should be doing instead of this game right now. That's what I'm talking about. The thing that I should be putting my time into that isn't this nonsense. That's exactly what I'm talking about right now while I'm in this nonsense. So there's that. There's that to consider. There's wasting time in general, which, yeah, man, I don't know. I feel like I don't know how to feel about that phrase. Time you've enjoyed wasting isn't wasted. I don't know if that's hedonistic cope or not. I feel like stress relief is important. I feel like there's unconventional ways people have to relieve stress because that's just how their brains work. For me, it's playing a 20-year-old game, a copy of a 20-year-old game run by random half-insane nerds like myself, and talking to the 3 or 4 of them that watch my videos. That's how I find some stress relief in my life, and how I waste my time. It works. It's worked for me for quite a while. It worked for me when I was really fucked up for the past several years, and now that I'm more or less sober, it still seems to be working. I still seem to derive some kind of relief from this process. But, yeah, this is just suffering. Killing these fucking things is just god-awful. There's There's not much you can do in the game that's worse than this. There's no sense of satisfaction because I'm already 99 attack. I guess I could go for 200 million attack XP. That would be the way to look at that. This. But other than that goal, I'm not going to bury the bones. Fuck that. If I did, I probably could gain like a prayer level or two doing this, because I'm going to have to kill 5,000 of these fucking things. I've killed maybe 1,500, maybe 2,000 if I'm being really generous in my estimation, but, I'm not even halfway there to the scroll. And just these things are so fucking boring. Like, they drop nothing. They have a lot of HP for their level, or they seem to. I don't know, maybe that's just me being tired of killing them. But they seem to be there just to annoy the player. Like, it's one of those things where this game really is a product of its time. It's a product of the time period where you had to invent ways to stall the player. And I think a lot of players, except a very few, not a very few, but a very specific, type of player that's super autismo about grinding. The ones who play those Korean MMOs where it's like 600 hours to max out like your skills or whatever. And then that's before you even really start to play the actual game. Like, people just do the same repetitive thing. This game is from that era. It's from the WoW clone era of, like, we can't farm out content. We can't just make a content farm. We're a small team. How do we make this game fun but repetitive? Like, it's from that era where it's like, well, we have to make a game that's just repeating tasks, because we have this engine and we have this sort of idea of a world. We have this concept of a medieval fantasy land. But how do we make content? How do we get players to keep playing for more than like 15 hours? How do you get people hooked? Well, you have to create situations and monsters and items like this, or else players don't have any reason to play the game. Like, if there's no challenge like this, there's no reason to keep playing. So anyway, I understand why these guys are here, but man, this is brutal. Doesn't make it any easier. Like, I feel like that's a common trend. It's like when you're doing something that sucks, it's kind of like people will often say, it's one of those empty things people say when they don't know what to say to you. Like, if you tell the truth to someone, this is what they'll do. They'll either ignore you, or they'll give you some platitude to try to get you to shut up or talk about something positive. So if I say, like, man, I'm being honest right now, I really hate this Skhuul grind. It really sucks. It's really boring, but I have to do it. Someone will go, oh yeah, wow, that sucks, dude. But at least you know it sucks. At least you're aware that its function is to waste your time, and that awareness, at least you have that, right? At least you're aware that it's temporary, that you only have to do it for a certain amount of time. That's like one of those platitudes people will use as a response to someone telling the truth. And it's why people who tell the truth get killed. It's why people like Socrates get killed. It's why comedians who aren't funny enough get killed, because they're being too honest without being funny. There's a great quote. I don't know who said it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically goes like this. It goes, if you tell the truth but you're not funny, people will kill you. Which I think is still true. I think people who tell the truth and who aren't comedic about it eventually you'll get socially killed, which is the same thing as being killed. I mean, eventually, social suicide too is a possibility. It's something that you can do if you really put your mind to it. But I think people who tell the truth, eventually that happens to them. I think they either end their lives in one way or another on their own, or they get excised from society like a tumor. The same way that you would excise a toxic person from your life. If you're the type of person who's very negative about telling the truth, if you're not funny, when you can't bring yourself to continue lying and you have to say something true, if you don't say it as a joke, good luck. Like, you better either be in some sort of position where that's expected of you. Like, I mean, there's very, very limited, narrow contexts where that's a thing. Like, if you're testifying in court and you are not in danger of telling the truth, if telling the truth is not going to endanger you, which is almost never the case, let's say it is. Let's say your lawyer has said, listen, you have a foolproof excuse. The cops know you're not involved. There's no way they can prove that you had anything to do with this, but you have evidence or you saw something, and you could put the nation's #1 pedophile rapist. He's raped a million children somehow. He somehow managed to do that. It took him 68 years. He worked at a maternity ward, whatever. He somehow managed it. He somehow managed to hit 1 million. He's the worst human being who's ever existed. And your testimony is all we need to put him behind bars. No one else saw him do it. You saw him and live to tell about it. So let's say that fantasy scenario is the case. In that case, maybe that would be the one time we'd be like, okay, I'm going to tell the truth now under oath and put this guy away, and then I'll be a hero for the rest of my life. That would be awesome. But in real life, that's not what happens. Telling the truth does not get you anything but hate, usually. It will get you, at best, I think, perplexement or confusion, or it'll get you one of those empty platitudes. Like if you were to say to somebody, we live in a mire of chaos, and it doesn't actually matter if you think nothing matters or something matters. Like it's actually that bad. If you were to say something like that to someone in a more eloquent way than I just said it, in a sort of a poetic way, and really say it beautifully in a way that's like horrifying, like sublime. It's as horrifying as it is beautiful, because that's what the truth is. The truth is equally beautiful and horrifying at the same time. If you were to say that to somebody, then they would either like pretend they didn't hear you, or they would say like, oh man, that sucks, but at least you can eat bacon, right? You can taste bacon. It tastes good. And it's like, well, yeah, it does. You're not wrong. But again, it seems like hedonistic cope. So this whole rant really is just it's me draining the pus from my brain. It's the Frankfurt School pus. This is what exposure to that for a decade will do to your mind. It'll turn you into me. And it's a very serious problem because intelligent people are sucked into it when they're very young. They think it's cool to be cynical, and it's not. It doesn't look like cynicism. That's what's so insidious about this Frankfurt School shit. It's cloaked in a veneer. That's a mixture of metaphors. It's cloaked in a cloak of intellectualism. It's like, oh, you're smart if you can think about depressing concepts for years and write about them, then you are intelligent. You have emotional resilience. You're mature. You're mature because you can make your students depressed, but you're not as depressed as them because you've secretly developed, as a side effect of being around other people who have this, you've developed a nasty, sociopathic, vampiric tendency to enjoy making other people depressed using toxic philosophies. By spreading toxic ideas, you have become a psychic vampire. By allowing yourself to be infected unknowingly when you were young with Frankfurt School psyop garbage, and now you exist as it's like the Flood from Halo. They'd have those big puffy guys that looked like popcorn. Like they looked like big bloated popped kernels of corn. And when you got near them or when you shot them, they would blow up and they'd spread spores everywhere. And the spores would infect living or dead material and turn it into more flood. That is essentially what this Frankfurt School shit is. It is a fungus of the brain. That metaphor has been used for communism since the 50s because it's true, because that's what communism is. That's what Frankfurt School... Communism is just one branch of the rotting Frankfurt School tree. That's all that is. People act like it's the big thing, and then, oh, we defeated it, so now we can ignore it. Or, oh, real communism's never been tried. It's like, it's in your brain. Communism is not the physical incarnation of that system as a state, because it doesn't, the whole point of communism is to destroy the state. It's not meant to be a good system. It was never designed to be a system that works. It's designed as a weapon, and the vector of delivering the weapon is not a virus or a bacteria or a bullet or a bomb. It's words, it's language. That's what those ideas are. They are toxic weapons that Germans invented in the 1800s. And those weapons have now spread across the planet, and they've completely rotted multiple nations. And we are now at a point where if we don't sterilize people's brains of this fungus, shit's going to get bad. And it's not going to be according to anyone's plans. Like, everyone right now is panicking. If they're at all aware, of anything, if they're remotely intelligent in any way, they are panicking. In some part of their brain, they've had to compartmentalize their awareness of this phenomenon. They've had to put it in a little box or a little room or whatever your metaphor is and say, yeah, that's happening, but I can't even think about it because thinking about it will infect me with it. Like, this is real, serious shit. It's not good, and it's the reason that we're in a war right now. It has less to do with economics and politics and money laundering and whatever else, and it has more to do with we created a weapon that is completely out of control, and it's been out of control for at least half a century, if not more than that. It's been more like 70 years. And it's a very serious problem. It's everyone has been infected with it to some degree, and if they haven't been, they've retreated into whatever alternate form of thinking has let them stay immune to it. But the problem with that is people who've retreated into other ideologies to protect themselves, to insulate or immunize themselves from the Frankfurt School stuff. If you've done that, good for you because you're less insane. But the problem with that is now you have less exposure to the virus, which means you have actually less immunity to it. And on top of that, you've replaced one virus with another if you've restricted your thinking to different ideologies or philosophies that are alternatives to this Frankfurt School shit. So you're kind of fucked either way. Like the people who are in the best position are the ones who are capable of holding two ideas in their heads that are completely contradictory and giving each idea the same amount of consideration, mental energy, weight, however you want to phrase that. It's essentially saying both of these ideas are equally nonsensical or equally valid. It's actually both at the same time. It's thinking in a kind of quantum doublethink. Doublethink isn't enough. Orwell was off the mark when he came up with that phrase. It's not doublethink right now, it's quantum think, because it's not two opposing views anymore. It's the 23 electron states. It's 500 opposing views. And it is something that very few people can maintain while also maintaining their sanity. You kind of have to be aware that you have to be aware of how much energy it takes to do it, and you have to be willing to consistently output that amount of energy in your day-to-day thinking. If you're going to at all confront this stuff, if you're not going to ignore it completely, which is the safest thing. The safest thing is to go join a community of people who are concerned with anything but global politics. Like, I wouldn't have said this, I wouldn't have imagined myself saying this 5 years ago, but I would say, go play Magic the Gathering, go geek out about Battlestar Galactica. That's literally more healthy for your mind and body and soul, if it exists, than to become embroiled in academia, politics, or philosophy. Economics is poisoned too, but to less of an extent, because at least you can make money and then you can use the money to distract yourself from how you had to behave or had to think to make it. That's at least a possibility. So economics is a good thing. You should be, obviously you have to be aware of economics to some degree, but I'm saying if you're going to invest time in if you're going to invest time in making a career that involves economic thinking and research and following how the economy is going day to day kind of thing, not like day trading, but you know what I mean, paying attention to it, then you better have a way of recovering from having to absorb that much media, because the media is like honey and borax, how you kill ants if you have ants in your house. You mix borax with honey. That's something that it's a wives' tale remedy, not a wives' tale. What's the term? It's a household remedy that's worked for 100 years. Is you just mix honey with borax. The ants will not notice that the borax is in there, and they're fucked. They eat it. They take it to the queen. So that's essentially what the media is these days. Is there is honey, there is stuff in there that is actually good for you, and actually will inform you, and actually will tell you something about the world, and will give you some insight, and maybe even a tip on how to make some money, or just how to prepare for X, Y, and Z. There is good stuff in there, but you have to realize that you've just eaten some borax with that honey. You always have. Every single thing has a little bit of borax in it. And that borax is the pollen from the Frankfurt School tree of toxic thinking. That's what the pollen is that jizzes off of the tree branches of that tree when you shake it. When you read Frankfurt School mind rape propaganda, you are shaking borax into your eyes and burning your eyes and blinding yourself to all that is positive and really all that's pragmatic. I think I said earlier something about people being pragmatic, and that being like a negative thing, like you're sort of just accepting the gradual decline instead of fighting it in some way. And people will say that that's pragmatic, but I think what I was talking about there was more so like, it's not pragmatism. It's a word I can't think of right now, but it's some other. It's not cynicism either. It's like settling for less. Settling is what I'm talking about. Being pragmatic, I think, is actually a positive thing, and the fact that I thought it was negative is just more. It's just more proof of how rotted my mind still is, and it really is insidious, because I think the best way to interpret how universities have been affected by this propaganda, the pragmatic way to look at it, the positivist way to look at things, the optimistic way even, would be to say, well, we're trying to find antidote for this poison by intentionally, we're infecting students with it on purpose, as a means of trying to grow in the students' minds some kind of antidote that is not just a reactionist opposite type of thinking to the propaganda. Because the Frankfurt School shit is so insidious because it predicted how people would react to it, and it incorporated that prediction into itself while it was being written. I know I'm personifying the material, but it really, there's no other way to phrase it, is that it created, as part of its own genesis, it created its own opposition. And that's why it's so insidious, is because it knew that there was going to be reactions to it that would be right-wing. They're not even right and left have no meaning. It's the opposite of whatever the Frankfurt shit is. It's whatever you think the opposite is. It doesn't matter. The fact that they incorporated, they were like, well, I bet people will react to this by doing this, and it's like, oh well, of course they are. Like it sounds smarter than it is too. It's not actually that difficult to predict how people will react to something if you understand that thing. So the people who were writing the Frankfurt School shit, and there's dozens of them. It's unfair to lump them into one group, but you know what? They're similar enough in their insidiousness and toxicity that I think there's no other way to talk about them. It's an oversimplification. It's a generalization, and it has all the flaws of those things, of those types of categorizations. But it really is the only way to talk about it. So I think that when universities are infecting their own students with this, that's the only way to look at it like a positive thing. Like it's like an MK Ultra thing where it's like, well, we don't know how to fight against this ancient German weapon, mind weapon that's gone out of control for 150 years. We're kind of at our wits' end. We really don't know how to finally squash it, to kill it. So that we've resorted now to intentionally infecting our students with it and seeing if young minds can come up with some kind of antidote. It would be like allowing people to get smallpox or something, and then hoping that one of them would just be immune naturally, and then you just have to capture that person and then reverse engineer some cure from their blood or something. That's, I think, what they're hoping. That's the optimistic interpretation. The pessimistic interpretation is probably the true one, is that no, this shit just worked so well that we literally have 3 generations of academics who are now, they're so thoroughly poisoned by it that they don't even know that they are. And it's not me saying I'm smarter than people who are older than me, who blah, blah, blah. If I was smarter, I would have an antidote for this, or I wouldn't be wasting my time talking about it. I would be doing something about it. If I was smart enough to figure out what to do, I would be doing something. And again, the thing is not, it's not to support the opposing viewpoints, because those have already been baked into the toxic ideology in the first place. So it really does create a bit of a humdinger for us. And it's not just for one group or camp or cult or political movement or ideology. It's all of us now that are fucked by this. And I don't think magical thinking or religious thinking is going to help. I think that does help with morale. I think motivation and morale are boosted by that type of thinking. But I think, again, that shit is baked into the ideology. It's baked into, the atheism that's promoted. It's baked into the historical deconstruction of the origin of religion, because of course it's all bullshit. It's all plagiarized from one thing or other. Yes, it's all just stories. Yes, stories are essential to human mental health. We have to tell stories about things or we go insane. But the problem with a lot of these toxic political ideologies that spawned from the Frankfurt buttfuck marsh is that they are, they know how they're going to be interpreted. They accurately predicted how they would affect their victims, and it would be like if a virus knew how your immune system was going to respond before it infected you. Like if it had a map of the human immune system somehow completely, perfectly encoded in its genome, and then you just unleash that virus, the people who you unleashed it on would be completely fucked. Like if the virus knew how your immune system was going to mutate, how your own cells were going to mutate in response to it. Like it has a sort of prescience. It almost has an omniscience to it. It's extraordinarily insidious. And I think that we're witnessing right now sort of the last desperate attempts to kill this virus, because if we don't kill it, we are going to have to live with it forever. We are going to have to somehow structure our society in such a way that it's able to function with everyone being infected with this to some extent forever. Because it gets passed on through our language and through how our language has been edited for a century. And the editing has been so slow that most people can't see it. I can't see it. I see it enough to know it's happened, but I didn't realize that till my 30s. And I was in the type of sphere or spheres, social spheres that were talking about this stuff, and not even talking about it in a way that's... I have to give people more credit, because a lot of the people who were discussing this were trying to be objective about it. We're trying to be above it. We're trying not to believe in it or succumb to its ideological temptation. And I have to give them credit, but a lot of the people were... either they were faking it really fucking well, or they had genuinely drank the Kool-Aid and they genuinely believe it. But that's the other problem, is it's impossible to fucking tell. It's impossible to tell who's pretending to be indoctrinated as a defense mechanism to survive versus who actually believes this shit. And then there's a third type of person that's probably, I actually hope this person exists. I can't prove it, obviously, and I can't think about it, but I hope there's a third type of person who's some kind of agent that is there to assess how infected people are. Like there's a person who's wearing an invisible hazmat suit who knows it's toxic and who is there to try to, report back to whoever to say, okay, well, here's how infected this college is. Here's how many students at this place actually genuinely believe this, and here's how many don't believe it. Here's how many seem to be faking it, but I had a private conversation with one of them and he said he knows it's bullshit. Like it's so difficult to discern people's genuine opinions. I think that that's part of the problem, and it's why the data collection is happening. It's not to like secretly fuck with you. Mostly it's to sell you products, but the data collection that's not trying to sell you something, that data collection, the stuff that's not being done for profit, the stuff that's being done for intelligence reasons, I really do think it's to try to figure out what people actually think, because people are so. I think people don't even know what they believe at this point, because at least in the circles I've been in, I have encountered other people who give me the same vibe that I give myself, and that is at times that I don't even know what I believe anymore, because I've had to adapt to so many situations socially where you're put on the spot to either say something or not say something. Oftentimes it's not say something. Oftentimes there's something that's sort of being silently screamed by everyone as a natural response to hearing some kind of Frankfurt bullshit. And it's like the correct response is to say that's bullshit or something similar. And the fact that no one says it is actually more disturbing and more chilling than somebody regurgitating some kind of talking point. Like somebody saying, oh yeah, we really got to work towards this, and this space really needs to do this. Like that's kind of like, you can hope that the person you're hearing say that is saying it because they're just bullshitting and trying to survive. That's you can delude yourself, you can lie to yourself, you can convince yourself, hey, this person, you know what? They don't really believe that. They're just saying it because they think they have to. But when no one says anything, and you can feel in the room that there's more people than you probably that would want to say, just stand up and say, I think this is bullshit and here's why. And the fact that no one speaks is so much worse than somebody repeating a line. Because at least when someone repeats a line, there's a chance they're doing it just to save their own ass. And that's the better of the two scenarios. That's the more optimistic of the two. So this is the kind of shit that I have to think of when I'm killing ghouls and trying to occupy myself. So I think I'm going to end the video. I'm at least going to cut it off because it's gotten to be ridiculously long and I'm getting tired of speaking. And I have a lot of speaking I have to do tomorrow. So I'm going to say goodbye. If you actually watch this, holy shit, I'm so sorry. Go listen to Gregorian chants or something. Go cleanse your mind. This is toxic shit. Even talking about how toxic it is mentally poisonous. So be careful. Don't Google this shit more than you have to. And if people start spouting off about it, just ignore them. But don't hate them, because they might be in the situation that I've been in for years, where I've been steeped in this stuff, and it permanently affects you. I think it permanently scars you. I think it's like a traumatic event to be immersed in this kind of philosophical poison. And again, you can't just retreat into like, oh, I'm gonna go back to my Nordic roots or something. Like that's all been baked into the tree, the tree of death, we'll call it. It's not the tree of life. It's the tree of death, the tree of anti-life. So it's just insidious. The best thing to do is completely ignore it. And if you can do so in sort of a minimally hedonistic way, in a way that gets you socializing and gets you just completely as far away from this shit as you can. And I know that's almost impossible now, but however you can get away from it, get away from it. Save your sanity. It's too late for me. I'm a madman already, but it might not be too late for some of you. So anyway, I'm going to say peace out again, thank you for watching this, and I hope that it didn't permanently scar you. Bye-bye.